You sound a bit quite congested.
Yeah, I'm very convincing.
Well, as per usual, if you're not feeling it, then don't feel obligated.
Nope, totally obligated. Do it! Do it now!
We're chained by social convention to come here now.
Which is not a bad thing to have, the first thing said when we start streaming.
It could have been worse.
Join us. The chain is long.
Okay, let's see. Everybody's signed in, everyone can access their characters and character sheets. Obviously you can't move them because I've locked them. I've kept the game paused. And everyone who wants to is getting something through Sirenscape.
Didn't click the button, thank you for reminding me.
Alright then.
There we are.
Good then. Okay, in that case, I will shunt us over to the intro video for a couple of moments and then we shall get started. So don't go anywhere, folks. Hello folks, and welcome along to the continuing adventures of the USS Navis. I'm MJ the GM, and I will be your games master for the next couple of hours. With me is the crew of the USS Navis, and I would just like to once again bring to everybody's attention the magnificent warp core that I've got thrumming along behind me. Webby, take your bows.
Wasn't there on Sunday. I complain a bit.
You only get it out during the best crew.
I was talking about our Pathfinder game, Alex.
Yeah. It's actually completely accurate to the show, because just like all the warp cores in the show, there's no working warp core ejection mechanism for emergencies, because that thing never works.
I'm pretty sure he could pick that one up and yeet it out of his window if he wanted.
Yeah, I don't need to yeet it far either. It actually, if you don't pick it
I
up
wouldn't
right,
recommend
it
doing
comes
that.
apart.
You might damage. Yeah, you might damage the electronics on it.
Yeah.
I'm not repairing.
Just imagining seeing the Next Generation go, we're taking heavy hit, we're leaking antimatter. Mr. Worf, activate the warp core ejection method. Cuts to Worf dragging the warp core down the corridor, grumbling.
Unlike the tactical officer of the Cerritos, who was like, please let me eject the warp core at them!
Let me eject the warp core at them. There's no emergency. We haven't got out of the starbase yet.
Oh, sorry, Lower Decks came to an end. There we are. Nothing good.
But it came to an end in a
least
really good way.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So, yes, alright then. Cool and the gang. How shall we begin? Well, I'm going to take us off pause. I am going to move us to the bridge. And, of course... Captain Andrews is the first one to regain consciousness. And not
what did you do,
voluntarily
Nova?
either. Andrews' eye implant flickers into life first, giving a few screeds of data as it reinitializes. That's when it gives Andrews a small neural shock to try and get her back to consciousness. As it does, the first thing that Captain Andrews notices is the pealing of alarms. The fact that there is very little in the way of light. And Andrews, like a good many people here on the bridge, are on the floor.
As you realise, wouldn't Edwards be in the engineering deck?
Not necessarily. But for the moment, there is the clamour of klaxons and there's this spark fizzle of electronics that are damaged, and of course, the fact that we are coated in darkness. Andrews groggily gets to at least her knees before she looks around and sees that the lighting is completely out, only on emergency backup lighting, and the gravity plates are at least still working enough that everyone is still fixed to the floor. But numerous members of the bridge crew are down, and the view screen is cracked. What happened here? Well, to answer that little question, we're gonna have to go back a couple of hours. Let me turn off the light.
Nova. What did you do?
Very successful
speed.
drill, sir.
Initiating time travel.
If you would all join me in doing the Wayne's World method of moving us back in time. Alright then. So, 2 hours earlier, the Navis crew are on one of their many patrols of the border between the Federation and the Dominion. Things are proceeding as they usually do. And, give me just a second as I say what this is. Seeing a banana getting nuked in a microwave.
Time machine.
Time machine. All right. It's probably more interesting than the one that we just did. Diddly-loo, diddly-loo, diddly-loo. This has got special effects. Anyway, let me get off this tangent quickly. So, Captain Andrews is doing her usual walkabout the decks of the ship, getting an appraisal as to what everybody's up to, whilst also reading the latest reports from the front. It seems that in the battle against the Dominion, especially in regards to the 20th Fleet, which the Navis is part of, the USS Randar's Curiosity managed to successfully trial a secure new communication system, with the hopes of now making it available to the rest of the fleet, if not the entirety of Starfleet, at some point in the near future. Here's hoping. Another report, using the newly placed military support chains that were established last time, the IKS Mapui has attempted to intercept an enemy flagship which was apparently conducting patrols near the Jiraiya system. However, not long after the Mapui entered into the system itself became completely cut off from outside communications for whatever reason that has yet to be established, and therefore the Mapui was forced to go it alone without any backup supplies. And reports have yet to come back about whether or not the Mapui succeeded or failed. However, since the Mapui was unable to use the new supply chains, there was some good news that the USS Stargazer was able to successfully repel frequent enemy patrols of Garon 2 with assistance from no less than your old Orion pilot friend, Rayna. He apparently led them on little secret ways into the Garon system that the Dominion didn't expect, and therefore were able to attack the Dominion by surprise. In other news, Captain Ralph Fortok, along with assistance from the Federation Diplomatic Corps, managed to successfully convince the Vindarans of Skater Tharlok's Minor to side with the Federation rather than with the Dominion. Also, Commander Gatrell led a task force consisting of the USS Merlin and the USS Appalachia against Dominion fleet movements in the Actium sector. The USS Merlin, however, was heavily damaged as a consequence of the engagement. Captain Picard's escape pod was finally discovered, along with others who were reported missing during the Stargazer's previous encounter with the Dominion. And finally, the 20th Fleet gets 2 new additions to its number as the USS Alba, an Excelsior class, and the USS Concord, a Phalanx class fleet. Phalanx class ship joined the fleet. So, good news and bad news and reasonable news all around. So, is anybody up to anything in particular at this point in time on board the ship, or shall we just assume that Dr. Bertram is going to be working on his latest scientific experiment?
Pretty much. Yeah, I'm thinking it's so good to have time to work on my experiments with no threat or imminent injuries to distract me.
Lieutenant Alex Monod actually requests to assist you on this particular part of your investigation into creating the ability to organically create a plant-based EV suit, essentially. Especially because he heard that your current field of study was quantum mechanics, and of course that's one of his favourites.
Yeah, he'll be welcomed.
Glad to hear it, Dark.
Always like to encourage the inquiring and scientific minds.
That and Ensign Eric just keeps going on and on about the stuff you keep investigating, so I figured I'd have a see for myself.
Well, come along, I'll show you around.
Yay. So, hop along to the hydroponics bay. Yes, sorry.
And you'll see a world of lost imagination.
See, I like
Become
to
a
think
plant, stay in here, like you're truly meant to be.
I like to think Bertram saw that video on some sort of ancient media archive, and all he's thinking of so many safety violations.
Really in front of my OSHA.
But we're using it as a safety training hologram fleet.
So, in event of lake made of chocolate, do not allow large children near the shore. Gotcha.
You know, it only take a little bit to push that film into horror. That really does.
Well, I will not get involved in the in the conversation of children's stories translating into horror stories, because that way lies a tangent that we probably don't want to go down in a Star Trek game. But nevertheless,
it's the first cross-franchised reference as well. He didn't even mention it.
Yeah. Well done, actually. Yeah.
Let's just all agree that Grandpa Joe was the real monster.
Grandpa Joe is the real monster. Giving benefits scrounge. I've not got out of bed for 8 years, and then all of a sudden, right as the rain. Oh, look at me! Yeah. How'd you get the chocolate bar, Grandpa Joe?
Well, exactly.
You know, maybe Charlie's mother or father would have liked that little break at the chocolate factory as well. They're the ones actually supporting the family.
You know how I said I wouldn't get into a tangent about this?
Well, you did.
We didn't.
I did.
Yeah, we did. Gonna spend the entire night debating an ancient Earth film.
Welcome along to this episode. This is USS Navis and the Great Glass Elevator.
Interesting hover novels. Of the novels.
Hey,
Horror
if you
novels.
actually read the physics about it, either they were going at the speed of sound to break through that glass, or the elevator would shatter. There are no so like physics. They violated the laws of physics.
Well, given the amount of
Floating
scientific
bubble
advancements
beer
that
stuff.
he made, he's probably actually invented some sort of sugar-powered force field, and he's using it for japes in his chocolate factory rather than advancing human science, which is another reason Bertram wouldn't get along with him.
Anyway, because I want to go on. I actually want to go to the tangent, but I don't think Matt would. So let's come back onto it.
The tangent klaxon shall be sounded, yes. Okie dokie. So, yes, since you are using quantum mechanics to have a look at how to solve the overall problem of creating an organic EV suit in the event of technological failure,
Yep.
how about we have... Who's first in my list? Alex! Can you be, well, your namesake, Mr. Monod? Assisting the good doctor. Now, he has assistant as a talent, so he can re-roll his assistant d20. He also has the option of doing the reading, but you don't have any momentum to spend for that, so we will hold that against him. But it's science anyway. He's going to be using reason and science, yes indeed, assisting the doc. Doc himself doesn't have quantum mechanics, so he's just going to have to go along the power of his reasoning mind. Puts the banana in the microwave to time travel back to the tangent.
Okay. Oh, so actually using quantum mechanics, did you say, is a focus?
For Alex Monod, yes, please.
Okay. Well, Doc Bertram throws in a success.
And Monod throws in a success. Okay, cool. So, some advancements made. Looking promising. In fact, Monod is running the numbers that Bertram did himself before, and makes a couple of corrections here and there, but not too many, at which point Monod goes, you know, Doc, I think you're onto something here. This is,
Yep.
You know what? Before I go volunteering any information, I think I need to do a little bit more research. But this is looking familiar. I'm gonna... Give me a bit of time. I'm going to go away and research some of the former away missions and see if I can draw a parallel here, because something of this is seeming very familiar to me, and I'm not sure why. I'm going to have to look through some data. Yeah, I'll get back to you on that.
Keep me updated. Do keep me updated.
Yeah, this is good stuff. Huh. Okay. And he quite happily trots off after a couple of hours worth
As he trots, the doctor goes, excellent. The quest for scientific progress and curiosity goes on.
Well, as head of science, you would hope so in regards to Monod, wouldn't you?
It's more because of Bertram's background, like his biggest pleasure in life, despite people would just immediately assume Moss, is actually both himself and encouraging other people into sort of scientific curiosity. So he feels that is basically the main, not so much the ideal of the Federation, but that is the main tool that the Federation seeks to achieve its ideals. Science in service to the sentient people to make their lives better.
Well, that's what Starfleet's all about. Science and exploration.
Yep.
Exploration in advancement of science. So there we go. Let me see then. Anybody else got anything else going on? Well,
I think due to the whole we need a second in engineering situation.
Yes.
We need to have a briefing with Stevens, Bravo, and Edwards, just to see how that's going and how we can get them moving in that direction.
Okay, so a little confab with the engineering team. And yeah, okay. So you get Ikran Bravo, Chief of Engineering, along with Daniel Stevens and Jonathan Edwards, into maybe not necessarily the conference room, probably more like the First Officer's office.
Yep.
On deck 2. And yeah, everyone comes along and brings their pads along with them.
It's
with
just
their
full of paperwork.
more paperwork. With that, the
No,
Data
there is just a box full of pads in date order that haven't been processed yet, just on a shelf waiting.
So, for those who aren't aware, that's our chief engineer right there, just for those watching at home. Okay.
So,
Bravo begins.
Ikran, how have both of these two been doing? What do we need to do to try and get things moving and get your second decided?
Well, as it happens, sir, I think the he looks between both Stevens and Edwards. The race hasn't exactly been a race. It's been pretty interesting. But Lieutenant Stevens here has been very, very interested in taking on responsibilities with the Bifrost drive, actually. Doing it off her own recognizance, I happen to add. So much so that she's taken to training some of our engineering ensigns on being her seconds and auxiliary support for the Bifrost drive. All off of her own back, all on her own time, and I gotta say, I've been pretty impressed with the results so far. Bifrost drive is operating at peak efficiency, and we've also had one or two suggested improvements to the system from Lieutenant Stevens, which apparently was brainstormed in a little session with her and her group. So, with all due respect to Lieutenant Stevens and her work ethic, I think the post for second in engineering is pretty obvious, and he casts a look in Edwards' direction.
Dead man, you got it because the competition dropped out.
No,
No.
Congratulations, Edwards.
Right, so we'll shuffle Stevens over to. So, Stevens, you happy shuffling over to leading Bifrost operations?
Webby?
Yeah, I've got no issues.
Right, let's put you over there then.
If that's what Edwards would like, to be promoted to the second in engineering.
I try not to disappoint.
I'm sure
Right.
you won't, Lieutenant.
And I think at the moment, we could probably do with expanding some of your knowledge of the rest of the ship and using your leadership to handle things in dangerous situations. So, is it worth us getting you assigned to the bridge for the next few days? Just damage control and engineers liaison.
To second
you're still
that
the
recommendation,
second.
sir? Says Bravo. I'd like to second that recommendation. Edwards' main strength is his adaptability to most situations, I find. He's more of a generalist, as much as he also specializes in communications and metallurgy, xenoarchaeology, and experimental technology, suggesting he's got a great deal of creativity, which we need for a generalist member of the engineering team. Putting him on the bridge would make more sense, because it would mean that I would be pulled off of bridge duty, and that means I can dedicate more time to engineering.
That makes sense. Let's make that so then. I'll
Alright.
note it in the log and the duty rota. Okay.
One more thing I would like to post in Lieutenant Edwards' evaluation here is his ability to speak multiple languages and fluently has actually helped me quite a lot with the fact that I have to deal with a Klingon set of engineers. Lieutenant Edwards, even though we do have the universal translator, has, with his cultural studies specialization, has made relations between the Klingon and Starfleet engineering teams go a lot more smoothly. I'm still having to break up fights, but that's because Klingons will be Klingons, and so what else can I do but allow them to be themselves?
If only Kev were here.
If you weren't breaking up fights with the Klingons, we'd be scraping heads off the deck. At least if they're fighting, they're not killing each other.
That's what I've come to understand, sir, yes. But they seem to respect Mr. Edwards's extensive library knowledge of their traditions and their culture. So having him as my second in that regard would also be quite advantageous to me. So unfortunately, Edwards, that means whenever there's going to be a fight between engineering between Klingons and Starfleet as to who should do what differently, I'm going to have to start throwing you into the mix.
I'll try my best.
Trial by fire, if you will. But then, you've been through worse, I'm sure. So if there's nothing else, Commander,
okay,
I think we need to get these guys started.
I'll let you get these guys started, and if you need any support from me, let me know.
Excellent. Yeah, Edwards, Stevens,
Day
to
Commander,
your posts.
good day, Lieutenant.
I'll have the full readiness appraisal for you for engineering status in about 20 minutes, Commander.
Okay.
And they all depart. But as they're going down the corridor, Bravo slaps Edwards across the back. You and me, bud. You're my second now, which means I'm going to be putting a lot more work your way.
Certainly, sir.
But it takes somebody with an outside view to try and keep things working on this, what's the technical term they call this madhouse? Technical testbed. A Klingon cloaking device, dual warp cores, and a dark matter-powered spore drive. Between all three of us, I think we can just about keep this thing working.
No doubt.
You get to the bridge, Edwards. Stevens, get to deck 9. I'll post the duty roster updates as soon as I get down to deck 15. See you there, folks.
Sir.
And off they trot. Alright. Spadoop, spadoop, spadoop. Eventually, the captain is finishing doing her rounds and is proceeding back up to deck 2 to get to her quarters, but just before she's about to get through the door, there is a communication from the bridge. Ensign, pardon me, I've demoted him again. Lieutenant Cashin, your communications officer, notifies Captain Andrews, Captain Andrews to the bridge, essentially. Priority message incoming, apparently, from Admiral April Hebert.
Just going to look at my sort of like the door to my quarters for several seconds, like. And then head to the bridge.
A count of a couple of Mississippis, and then, yes, turns around and goes to the turbo lift. At which point we find ourselves on the bridge proper, and the bridge is as busy as it usually appears to be. And as soon as Andrews comes on board... Is Andrews one of those captains who likes the bosun's whistle to go off every time she comes onto the bridge?
Oh, God, no.
Okay, good.
The bosun's whistle goes off when you enter the bridge.
I think the second time it went off, a strange phase of accident happened that just happened to strike it.
Yeah.
Even though the protocol was disbanded by Andrews, what she doesn't realise is that Commander Vibers has got a soundboard on his console and just presses the button to sound the bosun's whistle every time she comes in.
Well, I also just get the bosun's whistle replaced. It's every time I catch up with the paperwork, it gets repaired.
In the ongoing jousting match between the two COs. Right, okay. Do. At which point Andrews will probably glare in Vibers' direction. Admiral Hebert for you, Captain.
On the screen, Lieutenant.
Captain Andrews, we have a situation we need you to see to immediately. One of our outermost patrols, consisting of the Midway and the Thorn, were apparently able to intercept signals in the area of the Manu system, specifically the planet Manu 3, in the middle of the Actium sector. Dominion ships were seen in the area and were responded to immediately. However, the Midway and the Thorn requested backup, which arrived in the form of the Belfast and the Cartier. They have since also requested immediate backup. They are apparently being swarmed by Dominion ships. You're the most rapid response vessel we have in the area. I am thereby giving the Navis permission to engage the Bifrost drive, but only as long as you end your jump on the outer edge of the system. You are then to proceed at full impulse as if you had just finished warping in. Is that understood?
Understood, Admiral.
We are not sure of the situation. Communications in that area are being jammed, probably by the Dominion, so we don't have a disposition as to the size of the Dominion task force in there. So go with what you see. Keep it out.
All hands, black alert.
Black alert.
We shouldn't actually go in black alert followed by red, so we have everything powered up, ready to go before we jump. But you know,
I was going to say, I thought we have it like they all go through the colours simultaneously.
it has to. It's the rainbow. It's the Roygbiv spectrum.
So yes, the actual
All
lights
hands
themselves.
prepare for
Go on, so all hands prepare for combat. Yes.
All hands prepare for combat upon arrival.
So yes.
Admiral
Damage
Monaco
control
to the
to your
bridge.
posts.
Do I have red alert going off? I do.
So, just a quick clarification, you said, did you say it was communications were being jammed, or did you say it's sensors being jammed?
Communications.
Communications.
Which is, not exactly out of the ordinary. When an enemy is invading an area, if they don't want you to know about it, or they want to at least stop people from calling for help. But yes, either ways, red alert and black alert are sounded, which means the lights themselves actually shift through the whole spectrum before arriving at where they should. But the klaxon alerts go off nevertheless. So one would imagine by now the crew are probably used to this. Nevertheless. So here comes the narrative part of the episode, as I take us into essentially a cutscene. A step up to red alert.
Funny.
Yes, it does mean changing the bulb.
No, I just actually realised we didn't do the intro, did we?
Yes, we did.
He did.
My mind's going. I swear we didn't. We just kept talking. I thought.
No, I've got it. Proof. The intro video was played.
Oof. We got into that tangent at the start.
It probably was the tangent. Willy Wonka just completely threw everything off.
That world of
Usually
pure
does.
imagination.
So, The Navis jumps in to the edge of the Manu system, and as soon as you do, and you start closing within visual range of whatever's going on, your sensors and your tactical stations light up with signs of massive weapons exchange. And you see other Starfleet ships, the Midway, which is a Miranda class, the USS Thorn, which is an Excelsior class, the Belfast, which is a California, and the Cartier, which is an Intrepid, all engaged with swarms of Jem'Hadar fighters, and you yourselves engage and manage to pick out a Jem'Hadar battlecruiser. The battlecruiser itself, however, seems to have sustained moderate damage, and the Jem'Hadar are finishing off swarming around the other Starfleet ships. You yourselves are a cruiser, a heavy cruiser class. So you would equal the Thorn, the Excelsior class, in its scale, probably larger. As you come in and start drawing a tremendous amount of fire as a result. Weapons fire is exchanged in this pitched battle as you go about the battle, but then all of a sudden, as a few telling blows are actually landed on the battle cruiser, a shift happens in the Dominion tactics, as all of a sudden the swarms of Jem'Hadar attack craft go on mass suicide runs. Now, the Midway and the Belfast are already drifting in space from the titanic amount of damage they've sustained. The Thorn and the Cartier aren't much better, and so it's the Navis that takes the brunt of this. About 9 Jem'Hadar attack ships in total make a suicide run on the Navis, and you manage to destroy 3 of them on their run before the other 6 plow through, one after the other. Boom, 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 boom. Smashing through your shields, smashing into the hull of the ship in such quick succession and in such targeted locations. The ship gets rocked by multiple breaches. Everyone gets thrown around. Explosions go off in the ship. Everybody gets thrown from their various stations, and everything goes black. That's where we find ourselves. And so I'm going to take us back to people just waking up. So I am just going to do a bit of housekeeping here. Ensign Jean Eric was thrown right over his tactical station and landed with a sickening thud. Claude was trying to pull free
Unmoved.
the engineer at the rear engineering station, which exploded in his face. Claude was trying to pull him away from there before the final Jem'Hadar ship hit the top couple of decks. Edwards, you were thrown from your seat, and so actually find yourself in this area, which is, if you notice here, it's a bit, the design of the bridge in a similar fashion to the Sovereign classes is a bit funny. You've got this curving support strut almost that has a gap between it and the curving wall, and so Edwards was thrown from his station here and kind of landed ribs first into the support strut, and is finding himself curled around it.
If you've broken or cracked.
Well, that's why there's stress gone. Cursed is, of course, down on the floor as well. Lenny was thrown from his chair when his console exploded. So there's no telling what happened here. Unit Hello has just at least the remote unit that Unit Hello uses to get around and stays near Lieutenant Nova has just lost power and landed with a thump on the floor. Seems to have power. It seems to have... I just contradicted myself there. Seems to have lost seems to have lost motivity, let's say. It's just kind of sat on the floor, still with its little face screen active, but flickering. And it just reads error. Ensign Cruz thrown to the floor. Centurion, throw him to the floor.
Waffle.
Need to be careful, he's got a friend in Rome.
Andrews herself is just gingerly picking herself up, and so folks are going to have lost stress as a result of being thrown around the ship. Do. Nova's got a bleeding nose from having her face crack into the console. Vibers was thrown bodily from his chair, and the same goes for Andrews. The rest of the crew, well, we'll have to find out their fate sooner or later. But for now, as Andrews and the others start coming around, the first thing you hear is, "Somebody help! Somebody help me!" Which is Taryn, as she's there giving chest compressions to Lieutenant Keshen.
Where's the teeth? Oh god, who's the medic on the bridge? Nova. Nova has medicine 1. Edwards
Had no medicine.
and no medicine. Ibers
He failed medicine.
1. Plot 1. Tyrin's medicine 2. Do better, Tyrin.
Tyrin, help Lieutenant Tyrin. No,
Was that
I believe
That's the same Trent's the only one with 2, I think.
Yeah. I think everyone else is 2s. What about Jean? Jean's a 1.
Oh, Hello's got 2. Get the robot.
Yeah, there's a
Kick
problem.
the offline. Right, Cursed is a. Oh no, she's not. You took away her flipping.
Barney's just like reach for a console, try and see if we can beam the doctor up to here. We better beam him up unconscious or something. You find out he's just trapped under a column of some. It's like, oh.
well, you beam him up, and he goes, and this is the critical point we must not delay. Oh dear.
His scalpel in one hand, blood
Yeah.
stains on the other.
What would you like to do? Giggle.
Try not to panic.
Don't panic!
Don't panic, Mr. Mannering.
So, this guy is very dead.
Yeah, Vibers is gonna go help because somebody asked for help, and when everything's smoking and things are falling to bits, that sounds like a good idea to actually help. Captain's awake, they can handle
Yeah.
the chaos.
Yeah, so the first thing first is computer damage report. Let's start
You
getting that one.
Get
Survivors is
nothing
on that.
back.
Ah, excellent. Right, so let's take stock of everything. Okay, so repair team. Oh, Nova, Edwards, get to work on stopping that viewport from cracking. Because if it cracks, we're dead.
It's not a window, Captain. We're not in,
Not
we're
anymore,
in
yes.
modern days. It's not been a window for a very long time. Even I
Thankfully,
don't remember
yes.
when it was a window.
Thankfully, yes. I may have noted it before a long time ago, but since most of the tech on this ship is based mostly off of the Sovereign class as well as another class of ship, I don't quite remember what it was.
Galaxy.
Was it the Phalanx?
Ramming speed.
Oh, this ship
The
is
Phalanx.
Phalanx
Yeah,
class.
that was it. Thought I remembered it. Fixes the cup holder. Oh, thank God, yes. The coffee holder is now less askew than it was before. Yes, so the view screen, I think, yes, because people realize that having some kind of even 24th century perspex or something between you and the outside of the vacuum of space was a bad idea. So, long story made just as long, the view screen is now a holographic display. And that's, yeah, it's cracked and sparking. So you've got a number of folks. Claude eventually gets to his feet.
To gingerly get up.
Yeah,
That's
your ribs
Viber's
don't feel so
assisting
good.
with the first aid.
Okay, Gareth, since you are usually the medic type fellow, can I get you to be Turin and give a control and medicine? Turin doesn't have anything but except her medicine rating of 2, so it's going to just be all about that emergency medical training that she had not long ago.
You should live. It is not logical to die.
Ooh, 1 success. Okay. Good news is you get Keshen's hearts started again. Bad news is, well, he's badly hurt. And even though it seems for the most part his respirator hasn't taken that much damage, it definitely seems like he's having trouble breathing, which suggests he's got problems, maybe internal injuries to do with his respiratory system, but for now he's at least, his heart's beating. Ensign Cruz slowly gets to her feet and quickly cracks her nose back into place and holds her hand up to her head and realizes that she's bleeding. Turin is also sporting a rather nasty gash across her forehead, so her green Vulcan blood is running into her eye, which she's constantly wiping at.
Thinking,
Okay.
hitting people's scars because it was like this massive trauma when Keshen died. Not Keshen, when
Oh, good point.
Kef died.
Keshen's
The
not
second
dead.
Not Keshen, I meant Kef.
Can't even remember his name. Poor Kev.
But still,
You got
it's
to
like
remember the dead. It's part of my.
last time this. Well, that's what I'm trying to say. The last time that something like this traumatic happened to the ship, we lost someone that a lot of people cared about.
Yeah.
Turin, Cruz, get Keshen down to sick bay.
Aye, aye, sir. Cruz steps up, looks over to Turin, and she says, right, on 3. 1, then Turin just lifts Keshen up almost by herself. Whoa. Oh yeah, Vulcan. I forgot about that. Let me
Vulcans
get
have
the
no
door
need
for
of
you.
Vulcans have no need of your primitive extra numbers. 1 will do.
At the moment, Nova is getting a lot of emotional sense from the rest of the crew. So there's a general sense of ow as people are slowly coming around. There's a few spots of worry and fear. There's a couple of spots of people who are definitely injured. Maybe a few trapped. But overall, you at least are getting a reasonably sized number of emotions from people, which means that casualties, thankfully, aren't high. At least for now.
I'll pass that on to the captain, first officer.
Okay. If Edwards is trying his console, he's not getting much from it. Every command you input just gets a fizzle kind of a fizzle response out of the console.
Get into the guts of it. See if we can do some rewiring to get it to work.
Okay.
We need a sit rep as a situation badly.
Yes. Good. So I will ask you to give me a. If you're getting into the guts of the thing, I'm going to ask for a daring in engineering. I'll let you use your.
I've actually realised.
Ooh, go on.
I've actually realised there's something I can use for once.
Jury rig. Perform repairs.
Or is this
Reduce
for-
difficulty by 2 to minimum of 0. If you do this, however, the repairs are only temporary. Interesting. Okay.
I just need it to give it to let us know exactly what's going on. At least while it's in for this scene, while we're here at the moment. So, daring and engineering. Okay. Did you say you let me use the communications? Sorry to interrupt.
Yes, because you wanted a report on what's going on. So, ooh, blimey. Look at those rolls. Nice, good. So that's...
Whereas I didn't even wait for the difficulty. I was like, sorry, I'm using it, I can use it.
No, that's good. So, as Edwards is there trying to access the computer, obviously the console is doing nothing, so he gets down, pulls open the panel, and starts looking through the wiring, tries rerouting a few systems, and it's like, there's no response. It's obviously not faulty wiring. Connection seems good. Why aren't I getting anything? Communication lines down, maybe. If communication lines are down, then I need to find another way of trying to communicate with other people on the ship. How do I do... And Edwards looks down at his own communicator badge. Ah, there we go. Pulls off his communicator badge, prizes open the casing, puts it into the actual system itself, and fixes up the internal system to run off of his communicator for almost like a wireless dongle, almost. If you want to think of it that way.
Actually get into the main deflector dish, I see.
So this isn't going to last. It's a terribly rude it's a terribly rude fix, if it's a fix at all. But for the moment, yes. So you
saying we usually have the bandwidth of the entire of Wikipedia every second, we're now down to 2 guys on a telephone.
Yeah.
But it works.
It's not down a cut and string yet.
Yeah. Hello. Oh no, we're both speaking together. I'll listen to you.
Over.
So
You didn't say anything.
So Edwards has to manually change the frequency to try and access different decks. So it becomes a case of right, okay. Anybody on deck 1 other than the bridge? Do you copy? You get static, and then it's a case of anybody on deck 2?
Let's start with engineering, Lieutenant. We need to understand if the cores are stable, and then secondary would be the Bifrost to see whether that is stable.
Okay. So we want to start with engineering. So
Why can I never find an ensign when I need one?
Turin and Cruz manually heft Cashin and have to pull open. So Cruz is left to manually open the turbo lift door to get at the turbo lift, but the lift itself is offline.
Yeah, is it wise to take a turbo lift?
So they are looking to now use the manual, a lot more manual means.
Navis, do you know any shortcuts that can get them down to... Oh, have you got rid of the cat runs?
No, a cat runs is still a trait on
It's
the
still on the
Navis.
ship, isn't it? Yeah.
So, absolutely, of Cashin. Jesus, now I'm doing it. Now everybody is Cashin.
Lieutenant Cashin, take Lieutenant Cashin to sickbay, where Lieutenant Cashin will undergo medical surgery by Lieutenant Cashin supervising.
Dr. Cashin.
Lieutenant Cashin. He doesn't like to he doesn't like to use his medical title when he's in sickbay.
This is like Jeffrey Combs has every character in Star Trek: The Next Generation, isn't it?
Yeah. Lieutenant Cashin, open hailing frequencies. Try and get Lieutenant Cashin on the line to inform of the situation that has occurred.
So,
we're not supposed to mention the actor who does all the body doubling for Lieutenant Cashin.
Where is Lieutenant Coombs? Get him up here now.
They say the part of Lieutenant Cashin has been played by Mr. Coombs.
Alright, so is Nova up for guiding the team through the cat runs in order to get to sickbay faster?
Yeah, why not?
Cool. In which case, you lead them on a merry way. Now, it's not exactly easy going because Keshen is not exactly able to get going under his own power. He's just about barely conscious enough that you can lead him around, but it's more of a dragging that has to happen. So Nova leads the way, of course, and Turin is doing most of the muscle work, the dragging, whereas Cruz is helping with the fine manipulation of getting a barely conscious crew member around the various dips and ladder drops and whatnot that have to happen for Nova to lead them through. But one thing you do notice is that as soon as you hit deck... Where is it? Where is the list of decks that have taken breaches? Right, as soon as you hit deck 5, that's where you come across your first problem. There is crumpled bits of deck plating which are barring your progress, which means you'll have to abandon the cat run and go down the Jeffries tube probably for this section. So getting off or past deck 5 is going to... actually, pardon me. Where is the medical bay? Deck 8, there we go. So, yes, getting past deck 5 adds a bit of extra time on top of what you wanted. While that's going on, and Nova is leading these guys down to deck 8, and let me just put them down on deck 8 while I remember. Spoop-spoop-doop-doop. So you guys are there, dragging Keshen, there's Turin, and there's Cruz. Meanwhile, Edwards was putting through a communication down to engineering by having to manually tune to the frequencies, or at least try and tune into a computer panel, a functioning panel somewhere on deck 16 or 17. If you want engineering lower, it's going to have to be 17. And that's where we are going to take ourselves now. So the situation on deck 17 is not good. Got a number of crew down. Stevens herself has just managed to pick herself up as she was flung from her post here. Chief Bravo, even though he's taken a few knocks, is refusing to stay put, as Lieutenant Shakinis is dragging her Klingon co-engineer away from the panel that exploded on him. A number of engineers are down on this side too. But right now, Chief Bravo is dealing with the fact that during that run of attacks by the Jem'Hadar on the Navis, their core number 1 had to be ejected due to a breach, an imminent breach that was about to happen. So it was ejected away from the ship in order to make sure that it was no longer going to detonate anywhere near the Navis. However...
Wait, do you mean the warp core ejection procedure worked?
It did. Which is why when you mentioned it earlier, I found it hideously ironic considering what was coming up.
Yeah. I think
we're in the alternate...
We're in an alternate timeline. It's the only possible explanation.
This is why we have 2 cores, so one of them can eject safely and the ship still explodes.
However, core number 2 is heavily damaged. And at the moment, Chief Bravo is running around trying to get a feel of who is still alive, who needs medical assistance, what systems are still working, which are not, and is running around like a headless chicken at this point in time. Stevens manages to get back to her console just as Edwards, funnily enough, calls down to deck 17 to get an appraisal of the situation. And so it's Chief Bravo who comes up to the console. Situation down here is not very good, Captain, I'm afraid. We've got multiple injuries. maybe a few fatalities. Still trying to get an accurate count as to who's what. But second core is damaged, so main power is offline. Emergency batteries are enabled, but we've got some kind of problem with the main computer too. We're getting no response from it whatsoever. So I couldn't give you an accurate estimation as to what damage is on other decks. The fact that you're communicating rather roughly through this console suggests that comms might be down too. So, I don't know, we got a full plate down here, Captain. I don't know what else to tell you. I will try and have a better estimation as to the extent of the damage within the next 20 minutes maybe, if you can give me that. I need to spend a bit of time trying to make sure I can get some of my guys up to deck 8 somehow, to get them seen to. In the meantime,
Take as long as you need.
Thank you, sir.
Take as long as you need, Commander. Keep us informed of any situation updates.
Edwards, how did you, with comms down, how did you manage to patch us through?
I had to sacrifice my comms badge and a little bit of ingenuity in the guts of a control panel.
Excellent. Since you're now the only working communications line, I'm afraid it's going to be you that's going to have to coordinate between decks.
So you've got maybe some slightly better equipment. I can talk, if you've got someone spare, I can talk them through it. You might be able to set up something a bit more permanent, because I don't know when this is going to run out.
Let the engineers in engineering focus on their task, Lieutenant. You see what you can do up here to patch in as many communications and comm systems from any of the bridge crew.
Hi, Captain.
We'll use the bridge as a central relay for as much information as possible.
I'd have to second that.
Raid the escape pods if you need to.
Once again, don't have an accurate reading yet as to how much is damaged and how much is working. As soon as I get an accurate reading of who's fit and able around here and who doesn't need immediate trip to sickbay, I might have better numbers for who can start doing emergency repairs, but until then...
Right. Commander, let's assume Edwards is now damage control central. Once you've got people free, have them report to Edwards and he'll assign them somewhere to whatever needs done.
If you're patching communications through some of the auxiliary consoles, then I might send someone, maybe Stevens, through the ship, activating consoles so you've got some live lines at various on various decks. Stevens, you're gonna have to see
training it.
But if you want someone to check on the Bifrost drive, then Stevens is probably the best for that. So I will say stop at deck 9.
Right, who have we got in small craft and hangar control? Because they should be qualified enough to assist with that while you're busy.
You should be able to answer that by asking Lieutenant Lenny. And as we go back to the bridge...
It's like if one of the smaller craft still has their transporter unit working, we might be able to lock onto people and beam them about the ship. It might be slowly, but that'll help speed up the process.
You could also get them to do maybe a visual to see how bad the ship is, because right now I haven't got a clue.
We need to also understand what's going on with the Dominion fleet, because we were being heavily fired upon when we lost.
That's a good point, sir.
What's happened since that?
You'd imagine if there were any ships of theirs left, we'd be dead by now, right? Anyway, I'll get started on my end of things. Deck 17 out. Over.
Because the comms channel's just continually open at the minute, which is just going to be talking away in the background like...
You are hearing a lot of talking, a lot of shouting, a couple of Klingons barking not exactly barking orders, but they are exchanging shouted words. And since Edwards can speak Klingon without needing the universal translator, which is definitely not operational at this specific moment in time, or at least it's functioning on low power, so you won't have too much of a problem communicating between crew members. But nevertheless, there's a couple of Klingon curses going about, but Edwards can tell that it's the Klingons actively digging people out, or seeing that Starfleet are also dragging their fellow their fellow engineers, regardless of whether or not they're Klingons, clear of debris, and all of them working together. So the Klingons are giving honor to their Starfleet brethren for their selfless acts.
Edward, you focus on getting communications across the ship up and running. Commander, you're better suited for engineering repairs, but also I think you'll be worthwhile doing the assessment on the exterior of the ship to assess damage.
Right, I'll make my way down to main hangar.
Which means we need
Is Lenny awake?
Lenny is not awake.
Is he awake when I slap him across the face?
You just come back to the brink of death.
Tail.
Whack.
Bonk, bonk. Give me a moment. I'm just trying to find what deck the main shuttle bay is on. Crew quarters, crew quarters, crew quarters. Deck 15 is phaser arrays, targeting and firing control, deuterium storage. Main transport, navigational deflector. It's around here somewhere. This is a big damn ship, so I don't always remember where it is. God, the navigational deflector's on 3 decks.
It's a big ship.
It's a very big ship. Right, I'm going up. Maybe I should be going down. Warp core. Shuttle repair is deck 18, so what's deck 17 besides main engineering? Life pods, transporter rooms, life pods. Good lord. Guys, I've lost the shuttle bay.
Where did you
Never
last
had
see
one.
it?
Deck 18, shuttle repair, environmental control, main deflector. Deck 19 is the aft shuttle bay. Is there a forward shuttle bay? No, so it looks like the aft shuttle bay is deck 19. So you've got a long way to go.
Right, in the meantime, let's have a look. Who's on the bridge? So, Keshin's not there, is he?
Not anymore, nope.
He's on the way to medbay. Right, let's see. No, we're not on the bridge. Vivers is going off from the bridge. Cursed is now going to be as in Cursed. Oh god, you're going to be the medic now, aren't you? Yeah, Cursed to go round and check everyone's alive.
Kirst is unconscious but can be brought around. She is.
Right, Clark!
It's about you giving them orders as completely unconscious.
Yeah. Clark, your medic, get Cursed away. So, Cursed, I need sensors. I need to understand what's going off on the ship. Do what you can to patch in off of Edward's temporary fix
Aye,
to
Captain.
get comms on this.
She is holding her head, and she keeps fiddling with her teeth and looking around. Anybody see one of my teeth? I think I might have struck it out of my face. Lenny very painfully gets to his feet and sits back in his chair, but he's very woozy when he sits in his chair.
He's going to be
Bleeding out
relieved of
his
duty.
nose.
Yep. Anyone, same as Mano, etc. Anyone that looks injured. I'm going to move the dead. I can't move this engineer,
It's fine.
but
Where's
they're
one
going to
of them
move the dead to a position where they're up here, so that they've got some dignity, and basically cover their faces with, like carpet if needs be.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Mono can be brought around.
Look at how Edwards is doing all this while lying down.
Yeah, well,
I'm
yeah,
gonna
he's
say no
probably lying underneath
it.
the thing, but connecting different wires. So, yeah.
Oh, it's like
There's
an old
no
telephone
spare
with one-
cables.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was thinking. He's basically moving one wire to another port in order to communicate with another deck.
Hello.
So, unfortunately, yeah, it is exactly that. It is trial and error. So it's like, main bridge to deck 2. Anybody there? No. Try another port. Main bridge to deck 2. Main bridge to deck 17. So it's whatever communications you can get at the moment. So you're going a little old school. Hurst is frantically tapping away at the console where Mono usually has his does his bit. Mono, however, is having trouble breathing. He keeps holding his chest.
Right, yeah, cool. Claude, you're a better medic than I am. I suggest you tricord. Let's Mono and Lenny will keep them under observation. Jean's awake as well.
Jean's awake.
Keep checking into whoever's in the. Was it Lenny in cargo? Not cargo, in the shuttle bay, just to see if they've got if one of the ships is operational to start beaming people about.
Lenny's not in a fit state. That's where Vibers was heading to, was the shuttle bay.
Yes.
That's what I say. He's just going to be keep checking, so when people get there and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
He can't. He isn't. No. All he's doing is going around.
Well, yeah, if you can get communications to them and let them know that Vibers is en route and that we need them to start doing internal scans to see if they can find people that are in critical state and use the shuttle or use the Carpathia transporter to start trying to beam people around.
What they call it? Was it worker bees or something? Just a little thing.
Yes.
Can't we just get some sort of scan on one of them that's hooked up, so we can actually just start looking around because it is deployed from. Minor ports, aren't they? They aren't
Deployed
they
from
don't
the
go
shuttle
from the
bay.
plane. Oh, it is actually from the shuttle bay. Never mind then. I was hoping there'd smaller hatches around the place, so it'd be easy to throw out there, but never mind.
No, if this was obviously if this was the Navis, the previous Navis, you'd have had a forward and back and an absolutely huge shuttle bay, so access would have been less of an issue. But since this is based on a combination of the Phalanx and the Galaxy, you have a more restricted, smaller area for your craft. So this has less outlets for its small craft. But Kirst is there frantically trying to get sensors or anything working. She's got, Captain, I'm not getting any kind of response whatsoever from the main computer. Any command I input is just returning nothing. Think we have a problem with the main computer itself? We might be looking at well, the main computer might be badly damaged. If not worse.
Edwards, once you've got through to shuttle control, try and get hold of the main computer. Tell them to do a complete system shutdown and restart. See what we can salvage and what's available out of it.
Meanwhile,
Certainly.
go on.
No, certainly.
Down in Deck 8, the medical bay.
Nothing is happening.
Well, everybody in the medical bay was being seen to, because you were receiving casualties, or at the very least injuries, from before the whole big finish, as it were, of the suicide runs by the Jem'Hadar attack ships. So the medical bay was already pretty full with incoming injuries from the various impacts that were going on during the course of the fight. But then, of course, the mass suicide runs happened. Major damage has been reported, or not reported as it turns out, has been caused to the ship, and main power has gone offline. A lockdown actually happened, and Dr. Bertram and his assembled nurses and the injured parties in the medical bay at this present moment in time are currently locked in the main med bay. which is what Nova and crew find when they get to Deck 8 and are just outside of the medical bay's main doors, is that the doors are jammed shut and there's no power to them. Ensign Cruz looks over to Lieutenant Nova and goes, "So, should we try kicking the door down?" I've always wanted to see if you could actually kick a sideways opening door down.
I suppose they want me to find out.
On the count of Vulcan? 1, 2, 3, Vulcan?
Sure, why not?
So, Lieutenant Turin looks over at both Cruz and Nova and goes, "Does that mean you want me to kick in the door as well, or are we simply using my name as a colloquialism for brute force?"
Entirely up to you if you want to kick a door.
The answer to that question is yes.
Exactly.
In that case, I will have... Davis, can I have you be Mariana Cruz? Sean be Nova. Can I have Alex be Turin? And it's going to be basically daring and security, and see if you can all together put up enough successes and then damage to break your way through a door.
If only she was a typical Vulcan, she'd have realised that there's an emergency door release on most doors.
That's a good point. One success.
We're not bothered about that.
Turin, so 2 dice from the... Oh, hello.
Oh no!
Alright then, here's where I'm going to try something.
Lieutenant Cashin's dead. You accidentally used him as a battering ram.
I was just thinking that as soon as you said that. It's like, we knew him reasonably.
1 success, 1 complication. Okay. I get the feeling...
If only...
Go on.
If only his first name wasn't Horatio.
Now, you know how I said I had that that random prompt thing to introduce interesting new little whatevers? I think I want to use that now, just to see what happens. What do you think?
This room was decompressed. The door opened.
Feeling my
The vacuum of
damn it,
space did not
Webby.
reach you.
Alright. I am going to... So, the mythic system revolves mostly around asking questions. Yes, no questions. And they go from likely to very likely to unlikely to very unlikely. That kind of thing. And it will give us something. Some kind of response. Either a confirmation or a denial or whatever. Let's just see what it comes up with, because I'm now very curious. So for those watching at home, I am utilizing the Mythic Games Master emulator and its tools introduced for Foundry. So I'm going to ask it a question.
Does the door open?
Does the door
Yes.
open? But now, are we unsure? Or is it unlikely, or is it likely? Now, I'm going to say there are 3 people trying to kick in this door, one of whom is a Vulcan who are very, very strong. However, we could leave it at 50-50 and see what we get. What do you think?
Nova's in charge of the door opening.
Sean, do you want 50-50 odds, or do you want to bias it towards likely, or do you want to bias it towards unlikely? What do you think?
50-50.
50-50, I like your thinking. Let's see. So, does the door open? It rolled a 47. Unsure, but yes, it does. Okay. The door breaks open. What could the complication be? Oh, I was hoping
I don't think the emergency force field failure would be an interesting one.
The scene was altered.
That corridor isn't there.
Yeah, the deck plates have completely collapsed in this section.
Nope. You open a door, and all you see is an emergency force field.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with, yeah, sure, let's do that. Let's interpret
Yeah.
the results as that. So the door absolutely caves in, but then an emergency force field as the door actually malfunctions from the pure force of the impact, and an emergency force field activates as a security measure goes on the fritz. It appears that maybe
Bertram,
kicking in the door was not a good idea. However, from Dr. Bertram's standpoint, you could hear somebody banging on one of the external doors, and then the door crumpling.
Is the inner door locked?
You think so?
Oh god, it's like, we're being boarded.
It's like, oh, if it's the bloody Orion pirates again. Okay. Bertram's first thing is there anyone in sickbay who is basically still critically in danger, or they all been stabilised currently?
Patch the ropes and rivets to patch this hole.
A rug literally ties a room together.
Excuse me. Thankfully, because Dr. Bertram himself is able to get away with not needing technology, you managed to stabilize your patient on the emergency bio bed. Everybody else at the moment is being seen to as best as they are able without their instrumentation, so for the moment you're good.
Hooray for field medicine.
Exactly. So I took that into account. But yes, there's a sound of one of the doors crunching outwards.
Okay.
How would you like to go about this?
Bertram says, you know the drill, get ready to repel if these are enemies. He's gonna go up to the... He's gonna go up to the door. Can he hear it? If they crunch a door down, can he hear anyone on the other side of this door now?
Well, no, not really. But a force field doesn't stop sound waves, I would imagine, so...
Yeah. So I'm going to call out, identify yourselves!
So, Cruz, Nova, and Turin here, Dr. Bertram. We could totally have fun with him in this occasion. Would it be wrong to have fun with him in this occasion? Says Cruz.
I think Nova would already be responding door kicking squad.
Door kicking squad. Yes, you recognise Nova's voice.
Because, he goes, oh, right, Nova. And at which point he'll just say, carry on! And then he'll go back.
Oh god, she's just been given authority by someone higher up the chain than her to keep kicking doors down.
He's going to go back to try and actually getting as many people back up on their feet. And also then ready to, if they're going to have access, if they're going to regain access to sickbay, he's going to get ready to try and make as much use as possible for what he expects to be an influx of injured people.
Yes, okay. Turin looks over at Lieutenant Nova. I am unsure if we should resume kicking the force field, or do we actually use intelligence to get around it? What was that? Sorry, Sean, I talked over you there.
We could just phase her through the wall at this point.
Cruz looks at both Nova and Turin. Hell, it wouldn't be any more damage that hasn't already been caused. Besides which, the force fields are on the fritz.
You cat run.
Fine. Control and security from Nova. Does she want any help, or does she want to carve her own entrance in the door?
I don't think she will try and carve her own entrance.
Cool.
Why does it say Nova was here
Just
in the entrance to sick bay?
Huge cat face in the wall.
Yeah, there's just there's no entrance. It's just a huge cat face, and Nova was here.
Well, do you need anything
But
to
it's
the
still-
cat face?
But it still works as a door. No one knows why, but it does.
There's no entranceway, but we can get through into sickbay. How is it? Oh, it's a Nova.
Hi, Nova.
Aye, look at
Nova
that, 2
caused
successes.
therapy. Holodeck 3, Program 2.
So essentially, Nova, knowing how things work, targets the force field emitters in the door and just takes carves around them and behind them so that they lose their energy feed and the force field fizzles out. So yes, the force field is now down. You can proceed in, but as soon as you do, you realise that the doors are closed either side. At which point, Lieutenant Serin points. Comes up and says, "Perhaps now would be a good time to try and use the manual release."
Doc said we could kick doors in.
If that is your wish, Lieutenant. Door kicking team ho, I believe would be an appropriate battle cry.
Good God, we've broken her fully.
Not your
It's a
average Vulcan.
concussion. It's definitely the concussion.
Yeah.
How about we just wrench the thing open, all dramatic like, says Cruz. Maybe if someone could light us from behind. Well, blimey, Nova does that all by herself. Just wrenches the door open. Nurse Bravo looks over at Nova. I thought I detected a familiar chaotic presence.
Got a patient for you.
Yes, and then he notices Keshin.
So Bertram look over, goes, "Who's hit and what's their status?"
Tufty and Tufty and heart attack again.
Okay, bring him over to.
You can take this guy off the bio.
Yep.
Mr. Keshin, this is Mr. Keshin. Mr. Keshin has received severe trauma, and if he isn't operated shortly, Mr. Keshin might die. So, Mr. Keshin, you must operate on Mr. Keshin at your earliest convenience.
Well, which does beg one question. How is Captain Keshin communicating this for the bridge?
It's Mr. Keshin. Mr. Keshin doesn't like to use his title when he's in command of the ship.
Okay, I'll look at the one and only Lieutenant Junior Grade Tufty Keshin and start seeing what the issue is and if I can help.
Using more basic methods of medical diagnostics, you see that there is a big old blast pattern on his torso. So something exploded on him, very, very close range. He's got some shrapnel damage, but when you feel around his torso, some of his ribs feel a bit crunchy, which is not good. Crunchy to the touch.
And we're about power, so it's back to basics, people. Let's get going.
New teeth has stabilized hers, and the engineer who was posted on the biped before is at least conscious and up to just sitting down on the floor off to one side.
Are you sure that she's treated him and not just anaesthetized him?
Shall I ask that of Mythic?
Has Nurse the Teeth committed murder?
50-50
Maybe. 50-50 chance? You know what, I'm going to do it just to see what it comes up with.
Because Natif is a psychopath.
There's the second scar.
Treated patient. 50-50. Let's see what it comes back with. 44 is a yes. But an unexpected random event. Ooh, hello. Raise.
He wakes up and went, "You did an
new
excellent
ideas.
job at healing."
Interesting. How do we interpret that?
I think the patient wakes up completely healed and praises Natif for excellent job.
I'd say personality shift from trauma, but still thanks you for it.
Okay, what I'm going to say here is that I'm not sure about the praise exactly, but you now need to do something very old school and very different because you don't have the equipment available to you. So you're going to have to try something new to stabilize Keshin's breathing whilst treating the fact that his rib cage is probably in pieces.
Okie dokie. So, if he's having breathing problems, it's probably partly because of shattered ribs and explosion damage. How is his respirator working?
His respirator's actually pretty sturdy. Thankfully, it's the main part of the respirator is attached to his belt and is in two parts, one on each side. So thankfully, they survived the blast. His mask, his respirator mask, is also pretty tough, but it has taken some damage. Not enough that it's not feeding him enough of the air that a Zaranite requires, but it does mean that you can't simply intubate him by sticking something down his airway and just using an airbag to push air in, because he needs a different kind of gas to breathe. In fact, let's use this opportunity to look up what a Zaranite does actually breathe. They're from a planet of endless volcanic activity. Evolved breathing in toxic volcanic gases. So, probably talking sulfur. Yeah, high sulfur content. What can we use to
Someone
produce
needs to fart in his face.
a high amount of sulfur? Wait a minute. Isn't sulfur used to help plants grow? Along with nitrites?
Sulfates. Yeah.
Potentially.
Sulfides, though, isn't it?
Sulfides.
But that would be in his botany lab. Where,
Dr. Bertram's botany kit.
Well, I was going to say he wasn't, unless he keeps it on him. I was going to say,
The amount of
One thing I would Bertram would have and keep samples in the sick bay is samples from the Draconis omegas plant, because that can be quickly used to make a natural preservative good at reducing decay and therefore has medical properties. So if he rigs one of those out, then he might be able to actually kind of not only use the sort of nitrates in that to try and actually increase some sulfuric flow, but he might also be able to use the plant that he takes out of it to actually create the waxy substance preservative to heal up some of the bits on the respirator to increase its flow of Tufty's air, and potentially maybe they use it to make some crude sort of seals over the bits around the ribs and the chest area which are sort of like potentially compromising his respiratory system. It'd be crude and nasty, and it would probably require some real surgery later, but for the short term it might actually all contribute to getting Keshan breathing, if not comfortably, then at least sort of stably.
Like it. I like it. In which case, feel free to give me that rather daring and medicine type check.
Medicine.
We can have Nurse Bravo assist, but this is going for emergency medicine now.
Can I use botany as a focus, given
given what you just described to me, absolutely.
In which case, I shall invoke the Cochrane Medal of Excellence for botany.
Nice. Once permission, when the character spends a point of determination on a task that involves that focus, they receive 2 benefits rather than 1. Cool then. Webby, since you wanted to know whether or not New Teeth had killed somebody, you can be New Teeth. Assisting this. So it's going to be
it's now probably yes.
Daring medicine. She is probably going to be using medical diagnostics because she's going off of what the doctor diagnosed. And can I have Navis, if you can be Nurse Bravo? Same thing.
Okay.
Daring and medicine with his emergency. His emergency medicine rather than medical diagnostics. He's dead, Jim. Thank you.
Okay,
2
that's
successes.
That's 4 successes because of the Medal of Excellence.
And 1 more from Bravo, so yeah, wowza. Lots and lots there. So this will take a while. It's a slow burn to do, because we're talking small amounts of sulfur, and then the rather monotonous task of finding each of the various breaches in the suit, or the breaches in the skin that you want to seal up. And so, no problem, Sean. It's slow going. So that will take a number of hours, but it is, well, it's just like the random prompt said, it's a stroke of genius for some new ideas, which will probably earn you no small amount of praise from Starfleet Medical for improvising such an ingenious diagnosis.
Sadly, my first thought to use the mycelia spores agitated with tetrions to get their incredibly healing abilities was scuppered to the fact that we don't have any way of generating tetrion particles.
Yes, and indeed, no, quite.
Yeah. Therefore, I decided to go with Plan B.
Right, so Turin, Cruz, and Nova are now freed up to go back to wherever they want to go. But before we deal with that, because they'll probably be on their way back to the bridge, do we think? Because the captain did dictate that the bridge was going to be the central hub, central organizing hub. But they were gone before you said that, so... But at the very least, Turin would be the logical one to say, let's please get back to the bridge so we can see what else is going on. So, let's deal with the shuttle bay. Just have a quick looky-loo. Right, groovy. I'm gonna bring Vibers in here. Where'd he go? There's Vibers.
Finally got to the shuttle bay.
Yes, so the trip to the shuttle bay took you a good amount of time. Due in no small part that, just like I said before, Deck 5 was difficult to get through due to the hull breach there, but also Deck 12 has a hull breach, and Deck 19 is where the shuttle bay is at. So as well as Deck 5 and 12, there's also a hull breach on Deck 15. So, yeah, it took Vibers a goodly long while to get down here. The advantage of the shuttle bay is that it's on the aft of the ship, quite low down, therefore was able to weather the storm a lot better. So there is an ensign, one of the shuttle bay crew, who greets Commander Vibers upon his entrance. Sir, we've lost all communications with the rest of the ship. Is everything okay? How are we doing?
We don't know. Right, how many pilots have you got around here? Because I need at least 2.
We've only got 2 craft at the ready anyway, sir, so, yeah, we could fix you for 2.
Good. Right. We need to get them flight ready and get out the door. We need we're trying to get an external view of the ship to survey how badly damaged we are, because at the moment we have no computers, no comms between decks, and we're barely holding together. We've got damage control on the bridge, so if one of you can keep an ear out and give a report to Lieutenant Edwards, he's coordinating damage control over the emergency comms.
Gotcha, sir. You could probably take... He points out one of the shuttles. She's shipped out of her cradle and ready to go, so anything else is currently stuck in their cradles. We got no power, so we can't get
any of you shuttle certified?
I am, sir.
Good, you're my co-pilot.
Yes, sir.
It's quite hard to do a full survey of a ship when you're flying solo. So, That will help us get moving, and then we can get this get on.
Yes, sir. Okay.
And point to one of the others. You, Ensign over there. Right. You will hear a comm message from the bridge at some point. I need you to give a report that we're taking the Webby. Name the shuttlecraft for me, would you?
Well, Shuttlecraft 1 can just as easily.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Unless you want to name the shuttlecraft, yeah, by all means.
Hang on. Because today is a good day as well, you know. Because it's April 15th. Oh my god, you
Contact
heathen.
Day?
No!
No?
The day the Titanic sank.
That was a good day.
You're the only.
Well, no, I didn't say
You're
it was
the
a good
only
day.
one that seems to know that off the top of your
It
head
said
in this
good.
group.
You sounded like you said today's a good day. And I'm like, why would today be a good day? April 14th,
That was
2063.
centuries ago. That was centuries ago that sank. How are we supposed to remember? Damn it, I'm a doctor, not a historian.
Go on then, give us a name.
I'm looking.
Beg your pardon.
So we've got. Okay, here we go.
Like
There's the Masaba, the Mount Temple, the Baltic, the Frankfurt, the Virginian, and the Burma.
Frankfurt
Let's go
sounds a
for
bit funny,
Masaba.
so I'd go. Oh, Masaba. There we go.
Mesaba.
Masaba.
Right. Let the bridge know we're taking the Masaba out to do an external survey of the ship, and we could do with a additional pilot here to get some additional external sensors. Actually, is the transporter still working in that second pod?
Our main transport is not working, sir, but we haven't tried powering up the shuttles yet, so...
Right. You two, get that shuttle online, power it up, get its transporter running, and coordinate with medical where they need people moved.
Aye, sir!
Right. Come on then, Ensign. We need to go see how much of a ship we still have.
Mitchell, sir. Gordon Mitchell.
Good to work with you, Mitchell. Right, let's get this working.
All right, so the.
So glad his surname isn't Freeman.
Any reason? Gordon Freeman.
5:30.
I wouldn't know.
You said Mitchell, that'd be Gordon.
He said his name's Gordon Mitchell. I'm
sorry.
glad his surname isn't Freeman.
Also, misheard.
Because what else can happen with it when he's going out?
I'm going to ask Mythic a question. Is he the Gordon Mitchell? No.
This is not Hunter Freeman.
Is he actually Gordon Freeman, having come over from another reality? No, I never played Half-Life because anything that's a first-person shooter means you need to be actually, competent and be able to aim, which immediately disqualifies me. So, there we go. Although I hear good things about it. So, let's get Mr. Mitchell here. Ensign Gordon Mitchell. Alright, so you managed to power up the shuttle. Problem being, of course, the shuttle bay doors are shut and need opening manually.
Okay. Right.
Now, we've already established, thankfully, that emergency force fields still have some power, so engaging the emergency force field for the shuttle bay is possible, so you won't suck everybody else into everybody out into the vacuum of space upon first opening the shuttle bay door. So that's the good news.
Right, let's get this moved manually then. Yep, what do you want me to
Well,
do
I don't
while
think
I
you need to specifically...
kick this into...
it's going to be probably a manual job that takes a bit of time, more than actual rolls, since you've got full momentum, and I don't think it's outside of your capabilities of doing so. But it will take a bit of time, since you're manually cranking the shuttle bay doors open, and they have to open wide enough for a shuttlecraft to be able to get in and out, so it takes a bit of time. So whilst you're busy cranking open the doors to the shuttle bay, whilst engaging the emergency force field to stop the atmosphere from leaking out, let's jump back to the bridge. So far, damage report seems to suggest that anything to do with the main computer is so far not operational. You're getting no response on any input terminals that you use for anything at all. Lieutenant Commander Bravo, Chief of Engineering, reports that your remaining core has some damage. They will need to replace the injection assembly and the intermix chamber. Unfortunately, spares is an issue, because those are fairly complex parts, and normally you'd replicate the replacements, but in this case, well, main power is offline, all consoles are inactive, and therefore the ability to use replicators is now no longer possible, especially for such a complex device. So you're unable to do that currently. Comms are still out, almost definitely, and you have hull breaches on decks 5, 12, and 15. Deck 5, which means the junior officers' quarters have gone. Oh dear. The gym has been crunched. The multi-purpose room and the life pods have been put on the fritz for Deck 5, but otherwise nothing too bad. That being said, Deck 12 houses the access to the navigational deflector array, the sensors, and crew quarters. Deck 15, more importantly, is deuterium storage and the various targeting arrays. So you've got quite a number of problems to fix here. So that was the damage report that you got from between Deck 17, main engineering, and the bridge. At the moment, of course, Chief of Engineering, Mr. Bravo, is having problems coordinating, the repair teams. So the ship isn't being fixed all that fast, although the sheer amount of damage that's been taken wasn't going to be up to 100% anyway. But as long as you can get it back to a starbase or a shipyard, this stuff is still fixable. Nevertheless, that's enough of me waffling for a moment. What would you like to do next?
I think the main thing is trying to get comms back up so that we can start coordinating the repair. So anything that Edwards needs to get it moving, or assistance.
How
Sorry.
Yeah, go on.
If Kirst is getting nothing from the consoles, then swap her off of console to support, because she's science, so she can potentially put ideas in. Clark can hit things.
Was it not Stuart? The former rival for this position, wasn't she on the way? Stevens, that was it. Wasn't she given the instructions on the way up to restore at least a panel, or was it or activating
Yes.
spare panels to daisy chain? So it depends on how far along she's got.
Her primary mission was to check on the Bifrost drive, though.
So
and
we're
then
talking Deck 17 up to 9 now more than likely has a lot of active comm panels being used. Well, any panels being used for communications.
Okay, so we've got something. So okay.
Yeah. So you're able to coordinate a lot better thanks to that. So repair teams and folks who need medical assistance are able to start communicating back and forth. In fact, that's a... Well, actually, that's a good point, because Deck 8 is the
What's the
medical
docking
deck.
bay? The launch bay, sorry, what deck was the launch bay?
That's Deck 19.
So we've not got that yet. I was going to say, if we've got one on that, could we use that to relay with the ships that are going out and to be able to go comms going in and out the ship?
Yeah, that's going to be another manual job, I am afraid. But at least Viber's communicated that those guys who are on the shuttle bay deck, are waiting for a communication, so it won't be such a big jolt for them. So it'll be an instantaneous communication when you do patch down there, if you do patch down there. But yes, Kirst can keep an eye on the comm lines if you really want her to do that. What were you going to suggest that Edwards do, Webby?
Just carry on getting that, and as we said earlier, coordinating the comms.
Okay.
The damage repair, sorry.
Alright. So, there's a lot of time spent doing... I'm not going to say not much, because there's plenty to do. The only problem being, of course, that consoles are all dead, all non-responsive, so folks are having to break out their Starfleet training on emergency engineering repairs, but of course not everybody on the bridge is as up to it as Edwards. But when Nova comes back, you've at least got then somebody senior who is also very good at engineering. So it's still very primitive, the lines of communication you've got at the moment, but you've at least got those.
If there's not a lot that can be done on the bridge from a command perspective, because communications are out, then I'll be heading down to some of the lower decks to start coordinating responses on the lower decks.
Oh, okay, cool.
Or sort of be like, if we know that there's a breach on deck 5, the deck 5 will be the first one to start getting coordinated to an emergency response situation.
Yeah, that'll probably benefit greatly, because that'll allow easier access to and from the bridge, because it's so close to deck 1. Alright then, so Andrews can... you having Claude come with, or having Claude stay on the bridge just as a...
Claude's there. I think, yeah, Claude and Andrews are probably strong, so they'll be just going to do a lot of the heavy lifting.
Yeah. Cool.
On top of that, it's an emergency situation. You don't leave the captain to accidentally die due to a failed force field somewhere on the ship. It's a bit embarrassing.
Let's roll the complication. Oh, there's another failure.
So Lieutenant Claude is on standby in case of vacuum evacuated captain. Gotcha. Okay.
We're going to need another captain.
There's a sudden rush as people start trying to be the first to sit in the captain's chair and call it.
I've already called dibs. It comes with being first officer in the
Wait,
paperwork.
you want the responsibility?
No, but I'd like someone else to do my paperwork.
Lieutenant Edwards, you have... actually, Lieutenant Edwards is busy. I'd probably put Turin as has the con.
Okay.
If she's coming back with them.
Yeah.
And then tell Nova crews do what they can to get power and relays up and running, support on the communications and the damage control teams.
Okay. In that case, can I get Nova to give me a reason and engineering, please? Inner workings will be your focus for this. And I won't give you a target number, I just want to see how many... One success, okay. Nova's best estimation as to why communications are completely out and have had to have literally been hotwired would be more than likely the comm array itself has taken damage. So once again we go hunting for
Rabbits.
The communication hardware itself is on Deck 2, luckily. So you don't have far to go if you want to go have a look. But Nova's in the driver's seat, even though it can't do anything at all. So Nova's just probably sitting in the seat going...
She's installed a steering wheel just for this moment.
But either way, yeah, Nova having had a look at the... It's like the episode of Lower Decks where they try and decide what a warp core actually sounds like on a different ship. Does it make a noise, or does it make a whoosh noise, or does it make a whoosh noise, you know? Fun times. But, yeah, more than likely, if there's any main reason for communications being so whacked out at the moment, it would be probably worth taking a look at Deck 2 to see if any of the communication hardware has been damaged. However, in the meantime, let us jump to outer space. So, Commander Vibers, can you see this, by the way?
Yep.
Commander Vibers and Ensign Mitchell are in their shuttle and are in space, having a look at the exterior of the ship, and it's not fun to look at. There's, as this hopefully suggests, there's lights out, or at least low lighting, on a good many of the decks. You can see exactly where the hull crumpled from the impacts on decks 5, 12, and 15. Got those numbers right. And unfortunately, as you exit the shuttle bay, you also, whilst you're pulling out of the main shuttle bay and swinging your view around, you see that there are several debris clouds, and the shuttle's sensors are detecting lots and lots of ship debris. But you can pinpoint what you think are the other Starfleet ships, each of them showing very little in the way of power and a lot of damage. So, it seems that yes, there is damage to Deck 2, but mostly superficial. That could explain why comms are on the fritz. Deck 5, Deck 12, Deck 15 have got some serious impact damage. Through close inspection, by flying very, very close, you can see people running about through the port windows, and the starboard windows. Through the hull windows, there we are, that's what I was looking for. So if you wanted to, you could shine lights and wave or something, but folks are running about, trying to get to, well, wherever you imagine they're trying to get to, either repair things, help people out, move people. There's frenetic activity. But now that you're in a shuttlecraft, you do have access to comms sensors and stuff. So what would you like to do while you're out here, besides cataloguing the damage?
Right, I'm going to listen. I'm going to target a comms message to each of the debris clouds that seems to have a Federation signal in it, and ask for a status report on the emergency frequency.
Okay.
This is Commander Vibers of the Navis. We are arrived in the system and are heavily damaged. Can other ships in the system please report in? Over.
Okay, for the most part, what you get is... which makes a certain amount of sense. There's so many charged particles in this area due to exchanges of weapons fire, and well, one of the Navis's cores was ejected, so there was a warp core detonation somewhere in the area. But it seems like the ejector did work, and jettisoned it far enough away that the Navis itself wasn't affected by its own. But so far, you're getting very little in the way back.
Okay.
However,
in which case, that's going to have to be number 2 on the list, because our own crew is going to have to come first unless I hear evidence otherwise. Cool.
So then, what would you like to do now, then? Anybody else want to suggest anything?
There's potential. I mean, shuttle has got warp capability.
Mm-hmm.
Would it be possible to... Well, and you've got long-range comms on a shuttle. Would it be possible to get a message out to the starbase?
Yeah, that's certainly an option.
We noticed comm interference here, and I don't want to get too far from the other ships in case we can't find them again, because there's an awful lot of debris in here. This is a standard shuttle. We've got probes on board, don't we?
More than likely.
Right, so let's set one up as a comm buoy and launch it far enough that it'll get out of the interference, so it can so it can talk to a subspace relay or something and get us, and at least report the problem.
Yeah, so you load basically an emergency message onto it and fire it off, so it sends
emergency
a
message and a status report. As far as we're aware, we think we're probably okay for a couple of days for things, but we could do with assistance, and there's multiple ships affected in this area. We don't know the cause, but everyone jumping in seems to be surrounded in debris.
Alright. Okay, move us back to the bridge now. So, it takes a number of hours for this to happen, but eventually, thanks to Edwards's patching system for the communications, which allows folks to coordinate, the captain and Commander Claude go out and are trying to help with at least clearing the hull breach damage on Deck 5. Vibers and Ensign Mitchell complete their visual sweep and sensor sweep of the Navis and dock back into the main shuttle bay. And eventually, everybody comes together for a briefing. So, do I... Yes, I think I would do. We grab Chief Bravo of Engineering as he makes the climb to Deck 1 in order to give a full appraisal of the situation as it has been reported by both in analysing the sensors from the shuttle and from the reports back from the repair teams, all the communications that have been collated by Edwards and Kirst working together. Okay, so this is the situation as far as I can understand it in regards to ourselves. As well as all the structural damage that happened to us. Just before we were attacked by the suicide runs of the Jem'Hadar, there was an attempt by the Dominion forces to attack our main computer. And according to Lieutenant Keshen, now that he's apparently stable enough that he could talk, thanks to the efforts of Dr. Bertram and the medical team. Apparently the last thing he remembered seeing before his console exploded was that there was some kind of invasive program that got into the communication system, filtered into the main computer, that wasn't doing anything like rewriting protocols or anything like that. It was just there to create overloads in the systems. As such, our main computer has been fried, which is why none of the consoles have been responding to any input whatsoever.
DDS attack.
In its own way, yes, I suppose so.
And what about Unit Hello?
That comes down to communications. We did manage to get somebody to Deck 4. Deck 4? Is it Deck 4? Science Labs. Hang on a second. Deck 4. Is it Deck 4? Deck 6, pardon me, is the primary science labs. We did manage to get somebody down to Deck 6 because they were checking the primary computer core at the time, but thanks to Lieutenant Nova's cat runs, we were able to get around some of the damage and make our way to the primary science labs. Unit Hello, its primary crystalline cores at the very least, is still active. It's just that because there's no communication lines whatsoever, except for the rudimentary ones that and Lieutenant Edwards has created, the AI that we know as Unit Hello is not able to set up a communication line between itself and its mobile unit, which is why the mobile unit has shut down and is just not responding to input because it can't receive any at the moment.
Nova, take a crew, plug in Hello to the main computer. You have full access to allow it control of this ship.
Which actually comes down to the whole main computer job. We do need to replace many of our isolinear data stacks to account for the burnt out chipsets, and we need to find a replacement for our main computer server stack. Now, Unit Hello can do a tremendously good job. In fact, it's done it before in taking over basic functions and managing to coordinate functions. The problem we have is that the main data stack coordinating all of that is now completely burnt out and fried. So getting Unit Hello to take over most functions is a good idea and will do for now, but if we want any chance of being able to do anything with the computer systems of the ship, we need to get an actual physical replacement for the isolinear rods and the main computer stack. And that's not all we need replacing. We're unable to replicate an injection assembly or an intermix chamber for the warp core, so we need replacement ones found. The transceiver array from our main comms is completely shattered. We need a replacement comm array. And once we plug in the new comm array, and once we plug in any new main computer system that we find, they need to be rebooted and tested and brought in line with what our ship currently runs. And there's more. Our supply of quantum torpedoes has been completely exhausted. We now only have photon torpedoes, and we're going to have to fabricate those. Needless to say, whilst main power is down and the main computer is offline, we can't run the replication systems in order to start creating photon torpedoes.
You had to do that on last, didn't you?
Yes, sir.
It's quite hard to get the rest of the report when unconscious.
So we need to find replacements.
What of the other ships in the area? Have we had any correspondence or communications from any of them since the initial?
I think comms. I'm not sure now if the interference in this area was a Dominion thing or if it's a problem of the area as much, because we still have issues with comms getting out to the other ships. I sent a beacon out to try it. I sent a probe out to get past the comms, leave a message on the nearest subspace relay, but I don't know whether it's succeeded or not.
The Navis's sensors, if we can get power and the main computer and all of that back up online, we'll be able to get past most of the sensor interference caused, more than likely, by the sheer amount of charged particles and debris in the area. A shuttle would probably have problems because its array is smaller and its computational power is that much less, but if you were able to get up close in a shuttle to any of the ships, you could try the comms and sensors there for each ship.
If we get close enough, we could even be cheeky and try the prefix codes. If we can get one working ship out of all of these, then we're all getting home.
That was actually going to be my suggestion too, Commander. We already knew that the other ships were taking fire when we arrived in the situation, so we were the most intact ship when we arrived, and they probably sustained huge amounts of damage whilst they were engaging the Dominion. As the commander says, we're the largest ship if we can find survivors and get evacuated crew, but more than anything else, if we can at least get one working ship out of all of this, it may as well be ours. But we'll need parts. And if we're going to need parts, then maybe we can salvage some of the other ships. Maybe they've got some working pieces, or at least not quite so damaged pieces, that can replace the ones that we're missing.
Vice versa, I suppose. But no, sorry, ignore that. I thought that blew me by, but no, we're focusing on ourselves. What? This is going to sound a little bit dodgy, but if we need certain raw materials, would it be worth maybe checking to see if some of the wreckage of the Dominion ships could be salvaged and used as well? Just even if it is just reinforced plating in certain areas, or just plating in general.
Anything that we can and need to survive needs to be collected.
Sounds like our guys in the shuttle bay need to see if they can get more of the the word has gone out of my brain, as per usual.
Worker bees?
Thank you. The worker bees out of
We're
their
getting
cradles.
some of the worker bees up and running, and we could do with getting a shuttlecraft over to the other ships. Based on prior experience, the Excelsior system is probably actually we probably should start with the Excelsior, because those ships are hard as nails. If we can get anything, if any ship's got even anything sensibly working, that's a start. On top of that, those ships tend to be heavily refitted. So just because it's an old ship does not necessarily mean it's got old parts, so it might even have the things we need.
Didn't they also say there was a phalanx in that group?
No, sadly. Miranda class, Excelsior class, California class, Intrepid class. The Phalanx was one of the ships that joined the
fleet.
Yeah, the fleet. More's the pity. That would have been useful. Well then, looks like you're going to need a salvage team.
Yep.
So, who's going on the salvage mission? So,
I think I would
I
like to.
have. Sorry.
I'd like to say that Edward's Vibers Nova are going.
Yeah.
I was about to say,
But
but I
first,
also.
I would like Nova to plug Hello in
yeah,
fully.
be no problem.
I was thinking about using metallurgy to be able to like pick out bits that will work, the bits that are good, like, still functional and quality enough to work. But I was more thinking, so that they'll be leaving. Actually, no, Commander Fiber is going to be doing it. So I was just thinking, I've got responsibilities now. I've actually got to think. It's like, no, the commander is still here. So unless he doesn't need me,
I'm gonna be off on the salvage thing
not commander,
because
and
you
then
need a.
chief engineer Bravo. I meant.
So, if we're sending...
He's still here, but he's very busy, so it's your call, I think, whether you're free or not.
If that is the case, he does have responsibilities now. So I would like to say he'd love to go and help, but if he can't be spared, if Chief Bravo needs the support, that is part of his duties now.
Oh, for God's sake, go on the mission. I got my hands full anyway here. It's not gonna... The workload's not gonna lessen with you gone.
Okay then.
Now then, anyone else you would like to take, as in somebody that both Webby and Gareth could be?
I think Bertram should probably be going now that we've got people stable on our ship, because we're looking for survivors.
Good point.
Yep, okay.
Good point. Let's bring Bertram in, so he's probably going to be summoned to the shuttle bay. Anybody else? I mean, do you want to send Claude over, or do you want to send Bravo Chief of Security over, or do you want to send Stevens over as an engineer? Who would you like to play, Webby?
I don't mind. I'll send Stevens is probably a good one to pick.
Right. Where did I leave Stevens? In engineering. Not that much stress gone, I would have thought. Whoops, a daisy, that's not the button I wanted to press. Having been seen to by the doctor. Right, okay. So this is the crew who are going to be visiting the other ships in order to see if they can salvage anything and get going from there. So what I think... I'm going to do something unusual for us, and I'm actually going to call this half of the episode here, so that we can spend the next half of the episode next week doing the actual salvaging, going off to the other ships, and whatever else happens thereabouts, if that's okay with you guys.
Yep.
Fine by me.
Sounds good to me.
Excellente. Calling it a little early today, so only 2.5 hours, or 2 hours 20 for those of us today, so yes. So overall, yes.
So, quick question.
Of course.
For my log entry. What's the name of this episode?
Oh, yes.
Just so I can identify it.
Episode 53, Rude Awakening.
Thank you very much.
Because it was a bit of a rude awakening. As everyone suddenly came to consciousness and everything was wrecked, and the first thing you said was, Nova, what have you done? Nice. Well then, in that case, yes, we're calling things a little earlier today than usual, but that's because I want to pace out what we've got left rather than rush it for the next 40 minutes. So, yes. Okay then, in that case, thank you very much to everybody who tuned in today, whether you were on Twitch or on Moonbeam. We hope you enjoyed it, and we will see you next week at the same time for the resolution of this episode. So, I will ask everybody to do like the Vulcans do, which is live long and prosper. But also, yeah, get in on that door-kicking action with your friends. Because why not? Why not? Look dramatic, be cool, be strong. But also...
That door gave you a side eye.
But, as well as door-kicking action, remember to also engage in infinite diversity in infinite combinations, especially with the way a lot of governments and countries who shall, at this point, remain nameless, but we all know who they are enacting segregationist policies that go against everything that the Federation and Starfleet stand for. Shame on them. So until that time, next week, same time, we will see you then. Thank you very much, folks. Hailing frequencies are now closed.